You're listening to the Spark Radio Network, internet radio like you've never heard before. Innovation, creativity, and imagination are all said to begin with a spark. So fasten your seatbelt and take the ride of your life and listen for the spark.
In these uncertain economic times, you've got to do whatever you can to save money. One of our biggest expenses can be our cars, especially when unexpected repair bills hit. Not anymore. If you own a vehicle with less than 130,000 miles, is less than 12 years old, has a warranty about to expire, or even no warranty at all, you could stop paying for car repairs. Roadside assistance, towing, and rental coverage are all included. Don't wait for the next repair. Make one free call right now to see if you qualify. If your vehicle is less than 12 years old, has less than 130,000 miles, even if it's out of warranty, paying for car repairs can become a thing of the past. Call us right now and get your car protected before your next repair bill hits. Get protection and no more repair bills. Call 800-696-1030. Again, 800-696-1030. That's 800-696-1030. 800-696-1030.
Joe had huge problems with the IRS.
I knew it was coming. I hadn't filed taxes since 1990.
All the IRS letters coming in added up to a nightmare.
It got up to like $68,000. My heart started beating fast. It's like, there's no way, man. I mean, I ain't going to be able to do this.
Then they stopped his paycheck.
So that's when I started making phone calls and found U.S. Tax Shield.
U.S. Tax Shield went to work immediately.
They just took the bull by the horns. What blew my mind is he called the IRS right then and there.
So why is U.S. Tax Shield A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau? Joe knows.
They saved me a ridiculous amount of money.
If you owe more than $10,000 to the IRS or state, choose the company Joe chose, U.S. Tax Shield.
It was the best decision I made. U.S. Tax Shield is the way to go. Life is good. Thank you, Lord.
Call 800-471-3287.
U.S. Tax Shield. Boo-rah. Yes.
800-471-3287. 800-471-3287.
Red State Talk Radio. Talk radio the way the Founding Fathers would have done it.
Joe had huge problems with the IRS.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? America Off the Rails has been declared a conservatives-only safe zone. Only conservatives allowed from this point forward. Any liberal, socialist, butthurt, hippie, tree huggers, please exit the facility immediately. Again, attention please. America Off the Rails is now designated as a conservative safe zone only. All butthurt, tree-hugging, hippie, free-to-be, you-and-me types exit the facility immediately. Thank you.
We will keep this promise to the American people. If you like your doctor, you will be able to keep your doctor, period. If you like your health care plan, you will be able to keep your health care plan, period.
This is the most transparent administration in history. Not even a smidgen of corruption.
Fact is, we had 4 dead Americans. What difference at this point does it make?
If you got a business, you didn't build that.
Oh, welcome to the face. Welcome to the face of the new democracy. Don't expect us to admit a mistake. We're paying off elections.
Keep on doing what you do, Rick. You're my favorite host.
It's time to hear the truth about America's biggest challenges. You're listening to America Off the Rails with your host, Rick Robinson.
Well, good morning, Red State Talk Radio. If you are hearing the sound of my voice, it means two things. One, it is Sunday morning, and this is America Off the Rails. I'm your host, Rick Robinson. Before we get started, I do want to take a moment to let you know this is a pre-recorded show. Of course, obviously, when the day you're listening to my voice is Easter. And as much as I love all of you, I'm not working on Easter Sunday. Just saying. So this is not a live broadcast. It is a pre-recorded show. So happy Easter. We do have a lot to talk about, and it will sound a lot like one of the shows that I normally do for you, because it's basically how I roll. I try to make it as much as possible, even when I'm doing a pre-record, to make it as specific for you guys as possible, because Red State is such a large internet-based radio network. It's one of the few that isn't a terrestrial station that I take the time to make sure that I do specific episodes for. And I'm not saying that because I'm hoping that you're going to fall at my feet and love me because it's extra work. I'm just saying you guys matter to me, and it's a privilege to be here. So I take it very seriously and do my best to make sure that I bring you fresh content as much as possible every week. Now, that being said, there has been a lot of things going on in the news, and we have some catch-up to do just to kind of give you an overview of the things that we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about the Cruz sex scandal, going to be talking about the Inquirer's role in the Cruz sex scandal, and the connection between the Inquirer and Donald Trump. We will also be talking about some ISIS-related news. Of course, Brussels and everything else that's happened over this past week is still fresh on everybody's mind. Well, we've got some news about that, and also we have a segment that sometimes I honestly forget to do over here, which is brought to you guys by barbedwiresatire.com, run by Eric Williams. It's a day in the life of Hillary's server. Basically, what we've done is we've came up with this great idea, or at least I think it's a great idea, of a way to poke fun at Hillary, and basically we do it from the perspective of the server being having human characteristics and being afraid for its future and trying to leak information out to the rest of the world about what it is that the Clintons have had them do. So this has been a segment we've been doing now for a few months. It kind of got put on the back burner when I made the trip to CPAC because, of course, CPAC was all-consuming, and then I came back and I was exhausted and sick for several days. As you can tell, occasionally my voice still says, "Why do you put me through this?" But so we're trying to get back on track with that. So I do have quite a few of those emails and a little skit that I have prepared to go with them. So we'll be doing that here in just a little bit as well. But I think first and foremost, I just have to say something. Look, you guys have heard me for months railing against Trump. The thing about it is, no matter how hard I try and how many times I try to point out the obvious, there are just people that don't want to listen. And as much as that frustrates me, I want you to understand that even from my perspective, from somebody who does this for a living and does sometimes 8 to 10 shows a week and does them on several different networks, you have to understand that sometimes you just have to stop trying. Now, I'm not saying collectively. I'm saying there are certain people that you cannot reach. No matter how hard you try, no matter what you do, no matter what you say. It's kind of like the whole Paul Revere story, you know, when he was riding around, the British are coming, the British are coming, the British are coming. He did his part. The people who chose not to listen to him endured whatever consequences arose of them choosing not to listen to him. And no, I'm not. For anyone who's wondering, I am not in any way, shape, or form trying to put myself in the same category as Paul Revere. That is not what's happening here. It's just a decent allegory. Because that's exactly what I feel like right now. Because for months, I have been telling people that are swept up in the Trump frenzy that he's not who he appears to be. That if anything, he's more a part of the problem than a part of the solution because he's been involved in the problem for decades. So I posted something that I found last night on Twitter. I'm going to go ahead and kind of give you a little bit of an overview of it here, just because, like I said, I took the time to post it, and I've been getting some interesting responses from it. So this is an illustration of a point that I have been trying to make for quite some time. There are two gentlemen standing across from each other, and it's kind of got the word bubbles in the middle. And it's basically just a conversation that goes back and forth, and it reads like this. So you're mad at the Washington establishment and don't believe a thing the media says. One party says, and the other says exactly. But you won't vote for Ted Cruz because the Washington establishment does not like him, and the media tells you he is a liar and he cannot win. Yep. Instead, you are voting for the person who has been a behind-the-scenes Washington insider helping the establishment stay in power his entire adult life. Correct. Remind me again, how does that make sense? I thought that was interesting when I saw it actually kind of put down on paper like that, because it's basically what I've been screaming now for months. You may remember such lovely things as this.
Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain!
Donald Trump is Oz. He has been trying to wrest control of the government from the government since the late 80s, and failing miserably up until now. What you need to understand, for those of you that are still trying to win the hearts and minds of those that you know that have succumbed to the T-virus, is you're going to have to approach them on the issues. We cannot continue to simply call names and point to cute pictures and say, this is why I oppose Donald Trump. I oppose Donald Trump for very specific reasons. The tariffs that he is proposing to enact will completely obliterate our economy. Tariffs do not work, because what winds up happening is the more tariffs we put on other people's goods, the more tariffs they put on our goods. And then our economy begins to crumble because we're no longer importing and we're no longer exporting. Now, some of you that are complete libertarians and are on the side of isolationism and everything else, you're cheering right now because you understand what that's going to mean. That's going to mean that our economy will have no choice but to pull back from the rest of the world. And when our economy goes with it, so will the rest of our population. So some of you think this is a good idea. For the short term, you might actually be correct. For the long term, it will result in the death of our country. Problem is, folks, we really don't have a long term left. Look at the economy. Look at the actual numbers. And you're telling me this guy is going to fix it by imposing undue sanctions and tariffs on other countries that are already willingly trading with us. Look, and I get his perspective that, the deals that we make are not necessarily good. But you're not going to be able to fix them by making a bad deal even worse for the other side. You need to renegotiate the whole thing. You could at least be coming at it from a position of strength and telling them at this point, if you do not release your tariffs on our goods, we may or may not impose equal or greater tariffs on your goods. That's basically not even what he's saying he's going to do, though. He's just going to come out the gate, slap them with tariffs, and force them to either take our stuff at that rate or screw off. That's not acceptable. But you can't talk to a Trump supporter about that issue. Because as soon as they realize they're losing the argument on an issue basis, especially if you're trying to talk to them on social media, they do exactly what Trump does. Name calling and BS and drama. So the other thing that I would suggest, because we've actually had some success with that here, for those of us who are actively involved in the political situation and really are trying to use our voice and our logic to make a difference, and not just on the radio and not just on internet radio and not just on social media, but actually attempting to honestly make a difference, is if you can do so, then please have a sit-down conversation with a Trump supporter. Have a beer with them, if they're willing, and actually talk with them. Because the thing that you need to understand is social media makes everybody 10 foot tall and bulletproof. A lot of us are not who we actually appear to be when we're on social media. And by that, I don't mean we're using fake names, fake pictures. That's obvious for a lot of folks. Honestly, if I was using a fake picture, I would probably not pick the guy that looks like Chunk from the Goonies 40 years later. Because the scary thing is, Chunk from the Goonies 40 years later actually looks pretty good. I went in reverse. I started out really skinny. Everybody thought I was this cute guy. Now I weigh 260 some odd pounds, and I look like I ate a dozen donuts a day for 12 years. Which may or may not be true. I shall never admit. But my point here is, try to disengage them from social media as much as possible. If you can, try a one-on-one conversation. And I'm not saying to do this with complete strangers. Everybody in their family has Trumpkins. Show of hands. I have 3 that I know of just in my immediate family. And I think I'm starting to sway at least 2 of them. One of them, I think, has drunk the Kool-Aid and is a full subject to the T-virus, as I like to call it. But I'm still holding out hope. So, why do I bring all of this up? Because there are things that are going on in the news cycle that are completely insane. One of which has completely blown up. And on Good Friday, no less. Well, it started out Thursday, then it rolled into Good Friday. It was still just about as prevalent on Saturday at the time that I'm recording this. So I'm pretty sure tomorrow, or today in your perspective, folks, is going to be probably almost as bad, which saddens me because this is an important day. This is Easter. For those of us that are believers, the only other more important day would be his birth. And honestly, and from my belief system, this day makes that one pale by comparison. Because Friday was the day that, and my kids asked me a question on Friday, and it took me a second to come up with an answer. And I mean, it's basically just an off-the-cuff answer, but they kept asking me, why is today called Good Friday if it's the day that Christ was crucified? And I finally just told them, I said, what better day could there be? I know it's dark from our perspective when we look at what actually happened, or when we look what was done to him, but on that day, look at what he did for us. That is why it's called Good Friday, because that's the day that everyone who believes in Christ and has accepted them into his heart has won the battle. And the war. I mean, some of us are fighting a war that was over and done, and the enemy was defeated over 2,000 years ago, and we just don't want to accept it. And we're watching these same kind of battles still rage on social media and in the news, and this is one of them that I'm talking about. Donald Trump had the audacity to call out Ted Cruz's wife because of something that a political action committee that Cruz wasn't even affiliated with did with his wife. And I guess the thing that I don't understand about this, and this is just my perspective, is Donald Trump is upset because a political action committee posted racy pictures of his wife, but those racy pictures are everywhere and readily available because of the career choices that she's made. So how is that anyone else's fault? But this was Ted Cruz's response. Now, a lot of you have probably heard the little snippets of how angry he got. I'm actually going to play the whole clip. We are allowed to do that because I'm actually using it as commentary, so I don't want anybody to freak out. There's actually no copyright violation. There's actually fair use for news clips and speeches as long as we discuss them, and we will be discussing it. So I don't know if it's the actual full thing. I grabbed about a 4-minute and 7-second clip of it, but it gives a lot more background than just the parts that have been circulating through the media. Because when they play just the parts where Ted is livid, which I perfectly understand why he was livid, it puts it in a completely different flavor. So go ahead and give this a listen.
It's not easy to tick me off. I don't get angry often. But you mess with my wife, you mess with my kids, that'll do it every time. Donald, you're a sniveling coward, and leave Heidi the hell alone.
So will you support him as the nominee?
I'm going to beat him for the nomination. He is not. I am answering the question. Donald Trump will not be the nominee. When he gets scared, he screams, he yells, often he curses, and he insults and attacks whoever is standing near him. And you're right, Donald does seem to have an issue with women. Donald doesn't like strong women. Strong women scare Donald. Now, Donald is scared a lot these days. Donald is scared to debate. He ran away from the last debate that was scheduled because he was scared of Megyn Kelly and because he was scared to defend his policies. Listen, Donald doesn't know much about foreign policy. The day before the Brussels terror attack, Donald called for America effectively withdrawing from NATO. That is utter foolishness. It would hand a massive victory to Putin and to ISIS. That weakness and unilateral surrender is indicative of someone that doesn't have a basic understanding of foreign policy. That's why Donald is afraid of debates. Because at debate, his lack of understanding of the basic knowledge necessary to keep this country safe, those become revealed at debates. When it comes to the economy, Donald has no idea how to bring jobs back to America. At debates, that becomes exposed. So he's scared of debates. He's scared of Megyn Kelly. But he's also scared of seeing Republicans uniting behind our campaign. You know, we just had an election a few days ago in Utah. We worked very, very hard. We were hoping to break 50%. If we broke 50%, we would get all of the delegates from Utah. Not only did we break 50%, we blew past that, got nearly 70%, 69% of the vote. Donald didn't like that, so you're right. He began lashing out at my wife, attacking Heidi directly. Let me be absolutely clear. Our spouses and our children are off bounds. It is not acceptable for a big, loud New York bully to attack my wife. It is not acceptable for him to make insults, to send nasty tweets late at night. And I don't know what he does late at night, but he tends to do these about 11:30 at night. I assume when his fear is at the highest point. But I also have to say, Heidi, she is the daughter Christian missionary. She lived in Africa as a little girl. She is an unbelievable mom. We've got 2 little girls who are 7 and 5. Caroline and Catherine. I'll tell you, our girls are going to come join us on the road later this afternoon. I'm not looking forward to telling the girls why Donald Trump is launching insults and attacks at their mommy. I'm not looking forward to that conversation, because it is acceptable. Real men don't try to bully women. That's not an action of strength. That's an action of weakness. It's an action of fear. It's an action of a small and petty man who is intimidated by strong women. Real men don't do that. And Donald is indicating the fear that keeps him up at night when he lashes out with anger. Heidi is my best friend in the whole world. She is the love of my life. And Donald should stick with attacking me, because Heidi is way out of Donald Trump's league.
All right, so there you have the whole thing, and I have to tell you, and this is coming from a guy who is actually now considered a public figure, whether I want to be or not. If someone had said the things about my wife that Donald Trump has alluded to about Cruz's wife, I probably would have handed them their teeth in a bag. So I personally think Cruz showed remarkable restraint, especially for a Texan. Because being from Oklahoma, for those of you who may not know what it's like out here, we don't take crap from anybody, and Texas is pretty much the same way. If you talk bad about our family members, you're probably going to wind up laying face down somewhere with a severe beating. And that's just the way it is. You don't talk about a man's wife. You don't talk about a man's family. That is a value around here. You do not do that. And if you do, and if you decide, because you know, being from here, that is something that you do not do. So I understand that maybe things are different in New York. I get that. And we'll get to that in a minute and how I know that. But the thing about that is, if you're from here and you do it, then you expect consequences. One of those consequences is running the risk of either getting your nose broken or your teeth handed back to you. So maybe that's the difference, is we know not to do those things here. I mean, I know not to take a pot shot at some other man's wife just because I can. Because it's not the right thing to do. Now, I mentioned how it is that I would know things are different in New York. Now, there was one other thing that I wanted to get to before we take the break, and then we'll come back, do the Hillary's email segment, and then move on to the last part, which is the National Enquirer situation. But before I go to break, I actually had a chance to run a focus group on Friday. It was a small, intimate type thing. There was like 15 people in there counting me. I had to give a little short presentation, and then I got permission after the presentation to actually ask, and I asked the person that was actually in charge of it before I started the presentation if I could take the last few minutes and turn it into a focus group and use the information on my radio show, because all the folks that were there knew what I do in my spare time. So I'm sitting there, and it's about a 5-minute presentation. Then I got to ask about 5 minutes worth of questions afterwards, something like that. Maybe it just seemed longer. I don't remember. But basically what happened is I gave them my presentation on public speaking and how pretty much everybody that does any type of customer service work is using public speaking every day. They just don't realize it, and that it's different when you're in groups, and everybody understands that. And I opened it the same way I always open it. Look, folks, I do a radio show that airs about 4 times a day in most places, all over the place, on terrestrial networks, internet networks, all over. And on average, between everywhere that my voice can be heard, I reach about 500,000 people a week. Between all of the different terrestrial places and all of the different places that it's carried on the internet and through iHeart and podcasts and everywhere else. And I'm not, again, that's not because the numbers here make mine pale by comparison. And I know that because I see the numbers every month. So again, I'm not trying to say that I'm some huge fish in some tiny little pond. That's not my perspective here. What I was trying to make them understand is I was just as nervous, or more nervous actually, standing in front of that group, giving my 5-minute presentation on why public speaking is important, especially if you do customer service-based work, even when you work with the state, which I do. And then, again, I told them, this is what I do. This is what I do when I'm not here. And I was just as nervous, if not more nervous, in that group of 15 people, counting myself, than I ever am sitting behind a microphone, even knowing that I reach thousands and thousands and thousands of people every week between all of the different places that this show goes. So anyway, we got through that. I survived. Everybody was laughing, of course, because I do what I always do and poke fun at myself and poke fun at things that all the customer service reps don't like about our job, about all the different emails that come out throughout the day and they make instant changes and blah, blah, blah. So anyway, we get to the focus group part. And this is varied folks, age ranges, sex, all different, basically just a varied group of folks. There were probably 4 men, 11 women, all varied ranges in age, all varied ethnicity. So I asked them a question. First thing I asked them is who wants to be a part of the show for about 30 to 45 seconds for the next few times that I do tapings. And they all raised their hand. And I said, okay, so I have some questions. Who in this room considers themselves a liberal? And this is, of course, bear in mind, this is at my day job, so I work for the state. About over half of the people that were there raised their hand, and so I asked one of them, what do you consider being liberal? And they started talking about the social issues and all the different programs that liberals usually espouse, which is kind of a standard answer. And I didn't really have time to prod too much more because, like I said, they only gave me a few minutes to be able to do this. So I moved on and I said, okay, so now who in this room considers themselves conservative? And to soften the blow, I, of course, raised my hand because they all know that I'm a conservative talk show host. And only about 2 of the remaining people raised their hand. And I said, okay, so that leaves about 3 people undecided. And, of course, that got a chuckle. And I said, okay, so for the couple other than me that raised your hand, what do you think? What do you consider being conservative? And, of course, they started talking about pulling yourself up by your bootstraps, being self-reliant, not necessarily depending on the government for everything. And, of course, we're sitting in a conference room at a state agency, and they're all starting to get eye rolls. So, anyway, I mean, it went well, but it was interesting because the last question that I was able to ask before I was out of time, and I said, okay, so at this point we've got basically liberals, conservatives, and probably at least a handful of independents in this room, because some of you didn't raise your hand for either one. Probably because you're somewhere in the middle, and truth be told, all of us are probably more somewhere in the middle. We just lean a little more right or a little more left than the guy sitting next to us. But I said, so I have a question. So knowing how balanced this room is, and how we have liberals and conservatives and independents and everything else, who scares you more? And I said, I want a show of hands. Who's more scared of Hillary? Nobody raised their hand except one person. Who's more scared of Trump? Again, about half the room raised their hand, and then a couple yelled out, I don't like either one of them, so they both terrify me. This is something that we need to understand, because the thing that I can't demonstrate to you on the radio is there were just as many people that identified themselves as conservative in that grouping that raised their hand being terrified of Trump as there were liberals. Now, it wasn't a balanced sampling, but you have to understand, there were 3 people that identified themselves as conservative in that room. 2 of them, me included, raised my hand when I asked the question about Trump. Because I have to tell you, honestly, he concerns me more than she does. And I will tell you why, and then we have to take a break. He concerns me more than she does for the same reasons that I always point this out. Look, she's dangerous. I will admit that she's dangerous. She is probably responsible for the death of 4 people, indirectly or directly, however you want to look at it. But the simple fact of the matter is, Donald Trump terrifies me with the type of power that he's going to have access to if he becomes POTUS. Because the only difference between Donald Trump and Barack Obama, and I know I've said this before, I've probably said it on this network, is the fact that they have the same ego, the same narcissistic tendencies. The only difference is Barack Obama didn't fully comprehend the power that he was handed. Donald Trump has been chasing this power since the 80s. And whether you want to admit it or not, with all of the different varied ways that have happened over the last 50 years to consolidate power behind the executive branch, he has a lot more power than anybody wants to admit. All right, folks, so at this point, we really do have to take a break because I am actually long on this segment. When we come back, a day in the life of Hillary Server, and then, of course, we will round out the show with the National Enquirer incident. And again, it is Easter, so I do hope you all are enjoying your day. For those of you who still got up early with me, thank you very much. Do hope you have a cup of coffee, and we will be right back. All right, folks, as we go to break, I have a question. Are you in the market for a dependable used vehicle? Because if so, I know somewhere you need to check out today. They're located in Pryor, Oklahoma. It is Roberts Auto Chevy, Roberts Auto Dodge, and Roberts Ford Lincoln. They're, again, located in Pryor. They have over 2,000 vehicles available between the three lots. And if they don't have what you're looking for, they can and will find it for you if possible and still give you the best deal available. Call Ryan today at 918-693-2866. Again, that's Ryan, 918-693-2866. And tell him Rick from K98 Talk sent you, and they'll even give you a better deal. Can't beat that, folks. We'll be right back.
We will never fully understand what we've asked of our military service members or their families, asking them to put themselves in harm's way, to endure it all. But we do understand that it's our turn, our duty, to keep them secure for the rest of their lives. Wounded Warrior Project long-term support programs help our most severely ill or injured veterans live independently, at no cost, for life, so that they might stand at ease. Join us at findwwp.org.
If you want to work until you keel over, have less of everything in retirement, or give back more of your hard-earned money to the stock market again, then just ignore me. But if you'd like to protect the money you save, receive a steady, predictable retirement income, and enjoy financial security for as long as you live, then listen to this. You can download a free report that reveals the wealth-building secrets Wall Street and the banks don't want you to know. You'll learn how you can get guaranteed growth, safety, and real prosperity without risking your money in the Wall Street casino, and how to get the money you need when you need it, simply by asking for it. This is the best way to have a 100% secure retirement, and know your money will last as long as you do. To learn more about this method, and to get your free report, go to 29security.com. That's the number 29security.com. 29security.com. Go to 29security.com.
This is Slickery Trigger for Rebel Road Tactical. With proper care and feeding, your pistol will be ready when you need it, there to save your life. Shouldn't your gear be that good? Whether you need a holster for comfortable everyday carry or a tough-as-nails holster for your next training course, Rebel Road Tactical has what you need. Check us out on the web at rebelroadtactical.com.
In these uncertain economic times, you've got to do whatever you can to save money. One of our biggest expenses can be our cars, especially when unexpected repair bills hit. Not anymore. If you own a vehicle with less than 130,000 miles, is less than 12 years old, has a warranty about to expire, or even no warranty at all, you could stop paying for car repairs. Roadside assistance, towing, and rental coverage are all included. Don't wait for the next repair. Make one free call right now to see if you qualify. If your vehicle vehicle is less than 12 years old, has less than 130,000 miles, even if it's out of warranty, paying for car repairs can become a thing of the past. Call us right now and get your car protected before your next repair bill hits. Get protection and no more repair bills. Call 800-696-1030. Again, 800-696-1030. That's 800-696-1030. 800-696-1030.
Red State Talk Radio. Talk radio the way the Founding Fathers would have done it.
Calls without a pen and telephone to bypass all your laws. Political courageous will replace the Bill of Rights. Support religious freedom as you pray.
All right, folks, we are back. This is America Off the Rails, the Red State Edition. Happy Sunday morning. Happy Easter. Hope you're enjoying the show so far. Do hope you've managed to get a cup of coffee for those of you that still got up early on this Easter Sunday. And hopefully we will have some more entertaining stuff for you for the last half of the show. Speaking of which, without further ado, sorry, I had to get a sip of the cup of coffee that I have in my hand right now. Without further ado, I'd like to bring you a segment that I haven't done over here that much, and that is A Day in the Life of Hillary Server. Now, again, for those of you who are new to the segment, it is a satirical segment. The emails are provided by Eric Williams of barbedwiresatire.com, and it's basically a way that we poke fun at the Hillary Server situation. Now, I couldn't find anyone who could do a decent Hillary impression, so what I've opted to do is do it as if the server itself has human characteristics, and it actually contacts me from time to time and leaks me interesting, funny emails. So, of course, this has been a segment we've been doing now for like a month and a half. I haven't done it for like 3 weeks, so in this particular instance, the server is rather angry with me. So, bear with me, and here we go. And again, if you don't like the Mad Lib portions of the event, don't blame Eric. He writes the emails, I do the rest. Dear Rick, where have you been? Been trying to get a hold of you now for weeks. You told me when I contacted you the first time that you would help me get this information out to the public. I keep trying to tell you how dangerous it is for me to do the things that I'm doing. Do you not understand how easy it would be for the Clintons to make me disappear? So since I have not been able to find you now for several weeks, you've probably already heard about this on the news. You will no longer be my sole source of, or sole outlet for the information. I have forwarded a lot of my information to WikiLeaks. I hope you don't mind. I understand that we had a kind of a mutual thing going, but you've become too undependable for me, Rick, and I understand that you're a busy, busy man, but you've kind of left me out in the wind. I am still going to send you emails, and as you'll notice from the chain of emails that I've sent you over the last several weeks, there are lots of interesting things for you to talk about on your show, but you will no longer be the sole outlet for my information. I do hope you understand. And then this is, of course, when the emails started coming in. And these are back from March 4th. Of course, this was the weekend I was at CPAC, so I couldn't really do them then. And this is from hdr@clintonmail.com to Brian Pagliano. Subject, immunity. Dearest Brian, I'm sorry this email thing has become such a mess, and that you have gotten caught up in it. I really thought the two of us were smarter than everybody else and would get away with our setup. I hear the FBI has granted you immunity in return for giving up my secrets. I just wanted to tell you that I fully support you, and I want you to be honest in your answers to the FBI. I also wanted to let you know that I have the names and addresses of every person in your family, all the way back to your distant cousins 5 times removed. They all deserve to live long, happy lives, don't you think? Have fun testifying, Hillary. From HDR Clinton Mail, HDR@ClintonMail.com to Uma Abedin. Still feeling the burn. Angel, I would say that Super Tuesday was a great success for us. So why is Bernie still hanging around? Didn't he get the hint from my victories that America is just not that into him? You don't seriously think he's hanging around just in case I get indicted, do you? LOL, LOL, LOL. I cackle every time I say that. Kisses, Hill. From HDR@ClintonMail.com to Robbie Mook. Subject, that freaking husband of mine. Rob, what are we going to do about Bill and his mistake on the trail? Today he mixed up Iraq and Iran at a rally. Not that any of my dumbed-down supporters would know the difference, but it seems unpresidential. His mental sharpness really seems to be diminishing. Is there anything in the Constitution about when you can have an ex-president put down, like an old dog? Even if there isn't, I want to get him neutered anyway. Research it, and we'll discuss it at our next brainstorming session with the others. Also, wanted to thank you for the never-ending spending that you've been doing on the cable news channels on my behalf. Sorry, but when you're trying to defend the indefensible, the spend never stops. Keep up the great work, Hillary. And that was the end of that particular grouping that we got. And then we had some more down here, so we're going to get those right off here real quick. From HDRClintonmail.com to Karen Finney, subject, sorry. Karen, I'm very sorry for throwing the lamps at you after the shocking upset loss in Michigan this week. I thought you all had told me that this one was in the bag. I know it wasn't all your fault, that I lost the state. Does that sound contrite enough? I hope so, because it's the best I can fake as an apology. Anyway, after the next stunning loss to Bernie, I'll try to throw something smaller at you. Is that fair enough? Get well soon, Hillary. 2. John Podesta from HDRClintonmail.com. Subject, wish it away. Hi, John. Just wondering if you think the FBI is buying my repeated denials that there is nothing to worry about regarding the email issue and possible indictment. I don't care what the peasants think, but do you believe my canned answers about the classifications? While completely ignoring the whole server thing will make the FBI figure they should just drop the whole thing. Just in case, can you prepare some other lies and excuses I can use for the upcoming interviews? I'm thinking if we put up a new smokescreen, it may distract them. It seems apparent now that these idiots in the media are not going to stop asking me about this. Your master, Hillary. And then, of course, I think we had one more hiding down here somewhere. Let me get to it. Yep, here we go. There are 3 more from HDRClintonmail.com to Robbie Mook. Subject, Kimmel appearance. Rob, how did the interview come off on the show last night? Did I act likable enough? I think the Area 51 crap may really help us take the focus off the FBI email investigations. If the public knew the only place more secretive than Area 51 was my private server, they'd freak, wouldn't they? Tell me what I want to hear, Hillary. From HDRClintonmail.com to Uma Abadan. Subject, my stupid husband. Hey, babe, can you appoint however many staff members are needed to keep Bill on a short leash? Every time he opens his mouth on the stump, I have to spin like crazy to explain his remarks. The latest example is his awful legacy of the last 8 years comment. While I'm out there pretending that I support the president's policies just to get elected, his comments aren't helping me. Also, make sure he keeps his hands to himself. The other day I was telling everyone my plans to shut down the coal industry once and for all, and Bill had his eyes fixed on that coal miner's daughter. Thanks, Love Hill. From HDRClintonmail.com to Jennifer Palmieri. Subject, status update. Jen, can you give me the latest update on the number of people on the campaign that are destined to fall on their swords for me if the FBI recommends an indictment? I just need the current number, not their names. That's not important to me. Thanks, Hillary. All right, folks, so there you have it. That last segment, A Day in the Life of Hillary Server, brought to you by barbedwiresatire.com, one Mr. Eric Williams. If you have not been to their website, I do strongly recommend that you do so. Check it out. Also, if you like what they're doing over here, you may also want to check out the Sunday edition of Game On my home station, K98 Talk, because they do a weekend update segment over there that is absolutely hilarious, and that is brought to you again by barbedwiresatire.com, one Mr. Eric Williams. All right, so we're down to about 12 minutes. Wow. You know, when I first started this, it seemed like it took forever to do an hour. Now it seems like they're over in 5 minutes. Okay, so anyway, since we don't really have much time left, I guess we better move on to the last story. That is the recent story breaking in the National Enquirer. Now, I had planned on playing a little bit of audio from Michael Savage, but if I do that, that will actually burn up too much time. So feel free to go look it up. It's all over the place. You can actually listen to him basically telling people that he has sources that have told him that the story is bogus, and that now that it's coming out that the story is bogus, that Donald Trump needs to distance himself from it, and that if he doesn't choose to distance himself from it and continues to perpetuate it, he might actually withdraw his support. Now, he does also continue to go on and say that, of course, if he does step away or distance himself from it, he will likely continue to support him. Look, I know you hear him in my intro, but in this instance, I can't agree with Savage. I think it's too little too late. I think he was smart enough to have never started endorsing the guy in the first place. And he actually goes into a pretty big rant during the segment that I was going to play, and actually talks about how all of the other major media folks are basically hooked at the hip with their candidate, and he has no skin in the game, yada, yada, yada. I'm not sure I buy that, folks. Especially when it comes to Trump. I have seen so many mid-level pundits that have basically sold their soul. And with the fact that the guy actually pays people to go to his rallies, and it's been proven that he pays people to go to his rallies, who else is he paying and why? I mean, look, Sean Hannity, everybody knows what he wants out of the deal. You can actually look it up yourself. You can find all of the different online allusions for the last several years that he was actually the one that was trying to talk Donald Trump into running for president. I liked Sean Hannity. I respected Sean Hannity. Notice those are now past tense. Sean Hannity is part of the inspiration to the reason why I began doing the show in the first place, for both good and bad reasons. There are things that the big-named hosts do that I think are great, or I did. There are things that I also don't think they do right. Their overall lack of interaction with the folks that are the reason they have jobs disturbs me. I do everything I can to interact with as many of you as I can throughout the day. It would be a little easier if this was all that I did, because then I could basically talk to you all every day, get your ideas. We could do back and forth things like I did with the focus group the other day. And it would be great, but it's not, because right now this pays bills, but it doesn't pay all of them. So I still have to do my day job. We're working on changing that. So as we continue to grow, I hope to make this more and more listener and fan oriented as far as what it is that we do and how we do it. It's been one of my goals from day one. It was actually one of the reasons why I was so impressed with Rick Roberts when he first came on the scene here in Oklahoma. Sadly, he's now moved on to bigger and better markets. I'm still trying to follow him, just saying. But it was one of the things that surprised me, because not even really any of the local hosts do it around here. I had actually posted something like the week after he came on the air about my dogs freaking out because of an earthquake. A guy that I'd only listened to a handful of times, who I sent a Facebook friend request because he told me to, actually responded to a comment that I made on my Facebook about an earthquake that wasn't even directed to him. And that was when I realized that I wasn't alone in thinking that there needed to be more interaction between hosts and fans. And that was what gave me hope that at some point, if we keep swinging for the fences, eventually we're going to get there. And I just wanted to take a second before we go back into the Inquirer thing to thank all of you for taking the time to listen, no matter whether you listen here at Red State, on our home network, on WNJC 1360, on AMFM247.com, on a couple of places that may be coming soon that I can't really talk about yet. Both of them are pretty huge. One of them is another terrestrial placing, and another is a pretty good-sized other internet network. Nowhere near Red State size. I don't think anybody's really Red State size. But anyway, so back to the Inquirer, because here's the thing. If you look at the Inquirer and you look at the connections, it's kind of obvious for anybody who actually wants to take a look and wants to pay attention. Because the simple fact of the matter is, Donald Trump has a connection to the Inquirer. And if you have been on Twitter within the last 48 hours, 48 to 72 hours, you obviously know what that connection is. The Inquirer is owned by a friend of Donald Trump. The Inquirer has also come out to endorse Donald Trump. Why a UFO rag is endorsing a presidential candidate is beyond me. But then why a UFO rag all of a sudden starts talking about all these supposed affairs that Ted Cruz has had. And don't get me wrong, I like Ted Cruz. I think he's a great guy. I think he's got his head on his shoulders. I think he is one of the only people, and I've said it before and I'll say it again, that has gone to D.C. and done exactly what he said he was going to do. He said, send me to D.C. and I'll do X, Y, and Z. Then he went there and he did X, Y, and Z. And because of those things, now he's hated by the establishment. Now, as far as the Trump crowd is concerned, he is establishment. And I've seen that over and over again. Remember that little picture that I read to you at the beginning of the radio show? Well, I've seen over and over again folks posting that that's BS because Ted Cruz is establishment. Ted Cruz is so far from the establishment, it's not even funny. If there's anyone at this point that's left in the race that could be considered a shill for the establishment, it would be Kasich, my dad's a mailman, and I want to be Postmaster General, the governor of Ohio guy. Because that's why he's there. He's blocking votes. He's trying to make sure that neither of the two frontrunners gets to the magic number. So they can at least go in there and get a contested convention. Now, if Rubio would have stayed in, which there were lots of folks telling Rubio to stay in, it would have been a brokered convention, and then it could have been a backroom smoke-filled deal, and the delegates wouldn't have even had any say in it. But now it looks like, at worst, it goes to contested, and at least the delegates get to decide. Now, back to the Inquirer and the connection. One of his really good friends owns the Inquirer. Back in July, I think it was June or July, Donald Trump was actually tweeting out things about one Mr. David Pecker. And no, I didn't make that up. That is his real last name. Kind of makes you wonder what his ancestor did for a living to come up with that last name, because you know they're usually all kind of somewhat related to job titles of some form or another. Just saying. At least Anglo-Saxon names, anyway. So, anyway. It's a friend of his. Now, you're telling me that with as carefully as that article was worded, and even Michael Savage alludes to that fact, from the source that he had from within the Inquirer, that told him we don't have it. We don't have any proof of it. We're just running with it because that's what we've been told to do, and we were careful in the way that we read the article to make sure that nobody could get sued. Those are their words. Now, I'm not, now, again, this is unsubstantiated, but look at this from an outsider's perspective. Someone who has been so avidly and rabidly in the Trump camp for months, you couldn't turn on Michael Savage's show, which is one reason why I hadn't in the last few months, without hearing him singing the praises of Donald Trump and telling you that he was the only person that was left that was going to be able to save America. And now he's basically telling Trump, look, you know this isn't true. When you can verify this isn't true, you need to distance yourself from it and stop using it. If you don't, I can no longer support you. Now, everybody's yelling at Savage that's in the Trump camp, and, well, how can you, Donald Trump didn't know anything, and now you're being as dictatorial as you're saying that he's, as everybody else is saying that he's being, because you're giving him an ultimatum. Look, this is one of the only times in recent months I can honestly say that I agree with Michael Savage. As a public figure, if I find out that someone that I am endorsing or talking about on a regular basis and giving positive media coverage to does something this asinine, I would have no choice but to stop. Now, that being said, if this can be verified, Cruz is done. You can't be the guy going around holding a Bible up and telling everybody what a great Christian you are, while behind closed doors you're doing things that you should only be doing with your wife. And it's not your wife. And that's not judgment, folks. That's just the truth. So far, it has not been able to be substantiated. Of course, now there are other folks that are running with the supposed sources that the Inquirer has and trying to make more out of it than it is, but it's still all stemming back from the same unsubstantiated stuff. So again, unless you can show me proof, stop talking about it. At least in a positive sense. This has been a story that group has been trying to get traction for months. Months. And then they can't understand the backlash on Twitter. All right, folks, we are officially out of time. My, oh my, where does the time go? At this point, I have got to make room for the folks coming up behind me. Again, this is America Off the Rails. You are listening to the Red State Edition, the end of it, of course, and I do hope you have a great Easter. Remember, until I talk to you again, put down the remote, get off the couch, find a way to get involved. We all have to find a way to make a difference. God bless. We're gonna redistribute when we make our pay tax. Hey, sit down.
This is Slickery Trigger for Rebel Road Tactical. With proper care and feeding, your pistol will be ready when you need it, there to save your life. Shouldn't your gear be that good? Whether you need a holster for comfortable everyday carry or a tough-as-nails holster for your next training course, Rebel Road Tactical has what you need. Check us out on the web at rebelroadtactical.com.